Welcome to the Headley Highlight Show's Headley Headspaces. And this headspace is called BBC Confirms What Everybody Believed. You are not the lens that we form our worldview through anymore. Now, before I jump into this particular headspace, which is called BBC Confirms What We Already Believe, that you are no longer the mirror that narrates what our world looks like. I'd like to say thank you to everyone who's been jumping all over my channel. Thank you so much for your listening ears, your contributions and your comments, your likes and your shares. Please continue to do so. Press the bell notification and select all so you can get all of my uploads. And don't forget to make a donation because I'm very partial to 3 wings and chips and a Miranda or a piece of Bitcoin. So context is everything. Allow me to elucidate. The BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, the clue is in the name, the establishment mouthpiece, whose editorial standards have come into sharper focus on this particular occasion. Let's not forget that the word genocide in relation to the people in Palestine has never ever been uttered by any correspondent from the BBC in print, digital or audio. Allegedly, the uncaptured BBC is supposed to be a bastion of integrity, fact-based reporting and neutrality. And if you believe that, I have a bridge which I can also sell you. So the context is that the BBC broadcast an episode of a current affairs program called Panorama. And what they did was this. They edited a speech that he made in January 2021, so that it appeared he was inciting violence in the US Capitol. So the flagship broadcaster, who has the license fee, which basically means it's a subsidized exercise by the British public, created a false narrative about an elected president in a foreign country. Why? I mean, that sounds absolutely terrible. I mean, who would ever believe that they would do something like that? More for you. The edit spliced together 2 parts of the speech that were around an hour apart, indicating that it had a gap. As a result, the version gave a false impression. "We'll walk down to the Capitol and we'll fight like hell" was the contentious rally cry that they broadcast. Following an internal leak of a memo, very interesting, alleging a systematic bias in the BBC, this was escalated. And the memo raised broader concerns about editorial standards and bias within the BBC. What was the fallout? The BBC Director General, Tim Davie, resigned. The BBC new CEO, Deborah Turnes, also resigned. The BBC chair, Sama Shah, issued a public apology stating that the edit was an error of judgment. Anyone believing that also recently had a lobotomy. This country is engaged in a campaign against Mr. Trump. Whether you like Mr. Trump or not, the population is fully propagandized about the individual and his administration, notwithstanding that there are legitimate criticisms. One of the reasons for the propagandization of the British public against Mr. Trump is because he no longer wants to support the war in the Ukraine. And he also was questioning whether or not he should support NATO, which is Europe's only project of work engagement. Let's build bombs so we can blow up other people's children. Because we're certainly not building cars and we're not doing any manufacturing anymore. And what Mr. Trump did was he said, "I will sue you, BBC." And let's face it, he's probably one of the most reported presidents in the Western Hemisphere. And the usually insulated set of the establishment guardians, Tim Davie, Deborah Turnes, and Samar Shah, realized they were a minnow in that pool. Henceforth, everyone decided to fall on the sword of Damocles and basically eviscerate themselves internally, primarily to do one thing, to demonstrate that this was not a systematic policy of bias, but in fact an individual error of judgment. You know that one, the bad apple syndrome. It was only one person. It's not working practice or working policy. It's not built into the fact of the people who we have in these editorial positions and the continuing freeloading that we invariably have by so many people who use the license fee for huge salaries and not basically all that great reporting, frankly, propagandized reporting. I mean, if it's happening here, where else do you think it's happening? More fool you. That's why you should be listening to independent media. But the point was, they got caught. Trump's legal team demanded no less than $1 billion in damages. Now, that's a big threat. And whether you like it or not, it's not the type of threat that you want to countenance when you've got new people in the media market that are taking your market share. You can't afford to give £1 billion away. Trump's legal team claimed that the BBC defamed him, which is what they actually did. Not only did they defame him, they altered his speech and presented a misleading narrative. Basically, it was propaganda, people. He said it was his obligation to sue the BBC and that they were effectively defrauding the public with fake news. The letter demanded a full and fair retraction. Henceforth, the two top bods at the BBC both lost their kidneys over the exercise, and the chairperson had to write a groveling apology as her kneecaps were instantly combusting. She was so low on the floor and they were scraping her. She was scraping her chin by the curb. The reason she was put there, darlings, no one's going to be put there if they're not part of the team. They sincerely regretted it. I bet they did. And this demonstrates to me that the BBC, who once had a position of the lens through which we formulated our ideas of the world. Think about the World Service. Think about Radio 4. Think about all of the pioneering programs that used to be there. You now have to accept that there was always an element of propaganda in there. And if that's the case, how deeply has that propaganda seeped into your psyche while you weren't looking? Is it just now that you suddenly come to the comprehension that maybe you were being duped by some of the reporting that was being shared with you? Am I surprised? No, I'm not. I'm not surprised because if you think about some of the scandals that involve the BBC, you know, I could list so many, especially the scandals involving sexual impropriety. It's always these big figures who are very well protected. But on this occasion, the two big figures were not protected because there was an even bigger fish in the pool, like I said. And you were a minnow. And as the jaws in that little pond, you just got chomped. So what do you think about what happened this week with the BBC? Do you think that the license fee is worth it? Or they're basically a subsidized television broadcasting service? Do you think they're worth the money? Do you trust the BBC? Do you even watch the news on there? I mean, what do you watch or listen to on the BBC? I'll be interested for you to tell me and give me your 2 pence, your 3 cities, or your declining dollar price. Don't forget to make a donation, people. And don't forget, I'm not going to be, there's no show next week and the week after. I'm having a break, love it. Actually, it's 3 weeks. I'm not back until the third week, the first week in December. Yeah, I know. I'm having a long break. I need it. Listen to all my old shows if you fancy. See you in a couple of weeks. Bye and kata.